Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Shift Online. Thank you for taking... Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Shift Online. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us. Scan this QR code and you'll find all kinds of information about us. You can sign up for groups, upcoming events, and you can even give from there. If you need to find it, this is where it's going to be. And if this is your first time, you can fill out the Connect card and we'll send you a Starbucks gift card as a thank you. On July 20th, our combined youth group, Refuge, will be heading to Crescent Beach for the day. We'll meet at First Christian Church and leave at 8:30 that morning. Make sure you pack a suit, towel, maybe a change of clothes, sunscreen, water, and food. We'll have extra for anyone that might need it, and we'll be leaving to go home by 4:30 p.m. And you can register by scanning that QR code. On July 31st, we'll be having our first ever Serve Day. Instead of meeting at the building, we'll be meeting at the YMCA to serve. There are planning projects that everyone can participate in, even the kids. We'll meet there at 10 a.m. and serve until noon. It's going to be impacting one of Gainesville's best community organizations. Don't forget to keep bringing in your generosity jars. If you don't have one, you can get one at the welcome table. All the money collected is going to meals during the holidays and paying utility bills. That's it for this week, so let's jump into week one of A Better Way.
Hey, good morning, Shift. Welcome to online service. I hope that you guys, wherever you're watching from, I hope that you guys are having a fantastic, safe, awesome holiday. But this morning, what I'd like to do today, is I would like to raise a problem and not really give much of a solution. We've said this before, but life doesn't work like a sitcom. You don't get 20 minutes plus commercials and then wrap it up in a nice, neat little bow. And we would be doing you a disservice if we pretended that life worked that way. So let me ask you a question. Do you ever feel like Christianity isn't working? Right? Like the busyness of the church, or feeling discouraged because it feels like that prayer is not working. Like you do all of the right things. You feel like you're doing all the right things, and yet life continues to still go wrong. And then it begins to feel like Christianity's, not working. How about like this? Take a child. They grew up in church, did Sunday school, did church camps, VBSs, youth groups, first kiss in the back of the church bus kind of kid. And then as they get older, and maybe it's the college years, maybe they leave out for the first time, and all of a sudden they're being presented with things, with evidences that begin to contradict what was taught from the pulpit. They get into a science class, and seemingly what's being taught refutes what they were taught, right? Or maybe the people that they were told were the enemy, right? They were evil and selfish. And maybe they start to meet some of those people and they're not so evil or selfish. And then all of a sudden, those teachings that once created certainty and the safety that comes with that, all of a sudden starts feeling very constraining. Or how about this? Being taught that a season of blessing is right around the corner, right? That heaven's abundance is just waiting to open the floodgates on us. And then it doesn't happen. Jobs are lost. Miracles prayed for don't come. And that disease isn't healed. And then we start asking questions like, God, why aren't you answering those prayers? Why aren't you answering these prayers? Do you hear them? Do you even care? Does this thing even work? And you don't even have to go that dramatic, you guys. You don't have to go that far. Maybe you're involved in a church and you have like a YouVersion reading plan type of deal. You listen to Christian music to and from the workplace. Maybe you're here and you've even got a car magnet on the back of your car. And you've got a pretty good job and you've got a place to live. You've got car and friends and maybe even get to go on vacation some. But there's just something missing, right? You're just not happy, not not fulfilled? And does Christianity work? And it feels like there's got to be a better way, right? I want to read you, basically, this is our passage for the whole next 4 weeks. We're starting a new series that we've titled A Better Way. And this passage is kind of the anchor passage. And it's found in John's account of Jesus' life. And Jesus is talking to his disciples. And it's found in chapter 14, verses 1 through 6. And we'll put it up on the screen for you as well. And this is what it says. Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, would I have told you that I am going there to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am. You know the way to the place where I'm going. And then Thomas said to him, Lord, we don't know where you're going, so how can we know the way? Jesus answered, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. That idea of the way, it matters. Take it like this. You can say the right thing, but say it in the wrong way. Like this last weekend, I got to fly back to St. Louis and spend some time with my parents. I was up there doing a wedding for a longtime family friend, and I stayed with my folks. And I don't remember exactly what we were talking about, but my mom said something, and then my dad immediately responded like this. She said something, and he goes, "No, you don't," like that. My mom snapped her head over, looked at him, and shot him this look. And he just sat there thoughtfully for a second, and then he said the exact same phrase, but instead of saying, "No, you don't," he said it like this. "No, comma, you don't." Completely different response, same words. The way that he said it actually matters. But when we hear that phrase that Jesus says, the way, the truth, and the life, one of the things that we tend to do is that we focus in on that idea of truth, right? And one of the things that happens, especially in today's culture, is when we start talking about the truth of Jesus, it's in a kind of spiking the football kind of way. Like, I'm going to tell you the truth. This is the truth. It's my truth, and I'm telling it to you, and you better believe it this way. And that's kind of how it comes across, and has been for quite some time. But we rarely talk about the way of Jesus. Quick question for you. Do any of you know what the early church, the early first century followers of Jesus were called? They were called people of the way. And their goal wasn't just right theology, right doctrine. It wasn't just morality. Their goal was to live and love the way that Jesus lived and loved. Now think about that. Think about the way that Jesus lived and compare it to how most of us lived. Jesus lived full of joy. He loved life. Most of us are kind of working for the weekend, right? Can't wait to get to Friday, just trudging through the week. Monday is, the worst day of the week because then the weekend's over. Jesus didn't worry. Now, before we go any further, I think one of the things that we have done that does Jesus a disservice is that we've turned him into some sort of Superman Jesus, where of course he didn't worry. He was God. But if you look in Paul's letter to the Philippian church in chapter 2, it says that Jesus didn't think that equality with God was something to just be taken, and that he let go of all of that, and that he lowered himself to a human being. And so Jesus was fully human, and yet he still lived in a worry-free way. But most of us, don't. As a matter of fact, mental health issues, anxiety, depression, they are at global epidemic levels right now. Jesus stopped for people. Like, he could be on his way and something would happen and he would stop and take the time for that person. Most of us don't have any time for that. Let me throw you a scenario. Have you ever been at Walmart or Publix or whatever store? You're walking down the aisle going to pick something up, and then all of a sudden you see somebody that you know. Now, you're just trying to get in and out, right? You got to get this thing and get back home because you're tired, it's been a long day, whatever it is, and you want to get that. So what will you do? Most of us will like turn around, or hopefully they didn't see us and kind of go in a different direction and go out of the way so that we can wait for that person to pass and get whatever it is that we're doing, right? Because nobody's got time to stop for that. But let me tell you, I have never done that. And if I saw you at the store, I would go out of my way to stop and talk with you, okay? So there you go. Jesus was consumed with spending time with his Father, right? He was consumed with unplugging and being with his Father, that relationship. It is a great weakness of mine to stop and pray. If I do that, I am thinking my checklist. I am thinking about what I need to do next, what I need to accomplish, what do I have to get done today. And when Jesus went somewhere, right, he took his time. He had to. He walked. He took his time, and yet that's not us. That's not our culture, and that's not who we are. We are always pushing it. We are always overwhelmed, and we are always rushed. And I find that oftentimes I'm rushing to become somebody that I don't even like. Some years ago, my wife and I began noticing that we didn't like where the church was going. And I didn't like who I was becoming in the middle of all of that. And I don't mean Shift. Shift has been a lifeboat for us. But I mean the church overall, what Christians were saying and doing. Looking back, we started questioning the past 2 decades. Was it worth it? I think back to the church that we came from in St. Louis, and how it was structured. How I was constantly had to be doing something. It was about getting results. And so I had to plan programs, multiple programs through the week. And there were some weeks where I was home maybe 1 to 2 nights that week. And my marriage was in shambles. We saw each other passing. You know, she'd get home from work and then I'd be going to something else. And unfortunately, during that time, I didn't recognize what that was doing to and in my wife. I ignored it. We had toxic leaders. The leadership was terrible behind the scenes. I had an elder come to me and tell me that they wanted me working so much, so hard, that they would have to come up to the building to tell me to go home to see my family because I'm working so much. Verbatim, he said to me that passion starts at 40 hours a week. All that time spent away from my family, our marriage falling apart, all of the stress of getting results, and now compound all of that with bad theology, racist dog whistles, homophobia, culture war rhetoric, hardline patriarchy, and we were so tired. And before church, we weren't like that at all. We were young and carefree. We had fun. We had friends. We did stuff. And we had to change the way that we did things or quit, right? And do something else. There was no in between. I need you to hear what I'm going to say. What we had been doing for God was destroying anything God was doing in us. Let me say that again so you understand what I'm doing. What we had been doing for God was destroying anything that God was doing in us. And maybe that resonates with you. Maybe it's your pace of life. Maybe it's the way that you're doing life. Maybe it's your schedule. Maybe it's the things that you're consuming that are destroying you, right? Or our current culture where we're trying to win every argument and support every cause and know all of the things all the time. And all those things do is they expose constantly our insecurities. They constantly remind us of our unresolved hurts and our deepest fears and just distract us. But this is how we do it. This is the way the world works. And it's exhausting. I don't know if you've ever read any of the Proverbs. I love them. They are, there's much wisdom there, lots of deep wisdom. There's a passage that I think speaks to this specifically. It's Proverbs 14:12, and it says, "There is a way that appears to be right, but in the end it leads to death." If the way that we're living is leading us this way, and the way of Jesus is calling us to something else, then what is that way, right? Listen to what Jesus says in Matthew's account of his life, chapter 11, 28 through 30. This is what Jesus says about this. He says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Take my yoke. That's a weird phrase, especially for us, right? Because we're not, here locally, we're not, maybe where you are, you might be, but we're not very agricultural here in Gainesville. There are some surrounding areas that are, but most of us might be familiar with what it is. It basically kind of has two meanings. Yoke can mean the taking on the teachings or worldview of a specific rabbi. If I'm a disciple of a rabbi, I'm going to be following that teacher 24/7. I'm going to be living with them. And then I'm going to take on their teaching and take on their lifestyle, their worldview. It can also mean an actual yoke, right? It is this wooden cross piece fastened over the neck of two animals, and then it's attached to a plow or a cart. It's a work tool. And there was no single yoke. The yoke always joined two animals together to accomplish more. And this idea that Jesus is conveying isn't about us doing more, adding more to our plate, banding together to do more stuff, all right? It's about this idea of joining in Jesus in the work of rest, in the work and the rest. And this idea isn't new either. They understood this idea. This idea is also found in something called the Wisdom of Ben Sira. It is an apocryphal Jewish text written around 180 to 175 BCE. This was written 200 years before Jesus. Listen to how similar it is and how it has the same themes. "Draw near to me, you unlearned, and lodge in the house of study. Why are you slow, and what do you say about these things? Your soul is being very thirsty. I opened my mouth and said, buy her wisdom for yourselves without money. Put your neck under her yoke and let your soul receive instruction. She is to be found nearby. See with your eyes how, with only a little labor, I have gotten much rest." And Jesus is inviting us to this better way, to be joined with him, not just believe in his truth, but to live in his way, the way that Jesus loved and lived. And some of that is about disconnecting. Like right now, I'm going to challenge you to disconnect, to spend some time with the Creator. And I don't mean what we've reduced it to, where you read a few verses and then maybe there's a devotional. Not that that's bad, but that's what we've reduced this idea to. This was a time of rest and recentering himself. And that's what he is calling us to, about leaving the work over there. It'll be there when you're done. And it's about becoming, all right? This is a sacred space of rest. Long meals, deep conversations with people, stop and listening and then loving on the hurting. Part of rest is also releasing other people. Part of rest is releasing people to be who they are without expectation of them to be something else. And then rest is also setting my own boundaries to not invest emotional energy into others. Yesterday, I had somebody come at me and say some pretty horrible things to me. I've been called things from afar, but this was the first time that I'd had somebody go out of their way looking for me to say these things to my face. And I mentioned in our virtual campus the other day on our Wednesday Words, I'm a tough cookie, so my feelings definitely were not hurt. But what hurt was just seeing another human being living that way. And as they came at me, my adrenaline kind of shot through the roof. And then I made a decision as I was listening to the verbal vomit. I made a decision, and you can make this too. And this was part of rest because I felt that rest in the moment. And what I did was I was just like, Lord, I'm not going to allow them to take my energy. I'm not going to invest my emotional energy into this conversation, into this moment. And it was then that I was able to let it go. And that's part of that sacredness. It's not something that has to happen in one moment at one time, and that's the only place. It can be something that we're doing all the time. I'm constantly taking on the yoke of Jesus, and that's what he's inviting us into. It's not just in specific moments and places and times. He's inviting us into that rest all the time. All the time. And so when something does happen, then I can make the decision of, do I need to invest emotional energy into this? And there are moments that I do need to, but there are moments that I don't as well. And I can reclaim that, right? I can take that back. That's the wisdom of Jesus. In the Psalms, the psalmist in Psalm 23 says it like this, that the Lord is my shepherd, that I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. It's the same idea. And then another place in the Psalm says to be still and know that I'm God. And yes, I do believe that that means that there are moments that we need to be still, but also in the everyday, in the hustle and bustle, in the middle of the drive, in the middle of work, when you're working with your boss who's kind of a jerk, or somebody comes at you about something, you can still choose to be still. And so I think the questions that we have to ask, the wisdom of Jesus that we have to partake of, is how are we choosing to live right now? Are we living at this frenetic pace and we're rushing to become something that we don't even like? Or can we begin to see and participate and then live in the way of Jesus, to live and love like he did? The question for me that I'm asking myself is, in the way that I live, is it producing bad fruit? Is it producing death for myself and for others? Or am I pursuing Jesus and living his way and producing resurrection and good fruit in my life and in the life of others? And I think that is the question that we need to wrestle with. And so there is no resolution this morning. There is no nice, neat little bow. This is something that you're going to have to wrestle with, that I'm going to have to wrestle with, and we'll have to wrestle with probably for the rest of our lives. And that's okay. But I think that's the question worth asking. What is the way that you're living? Is it the way that the world pushes us to, that leads to death? Or is it a way that Jesus is inviting us to that leads to life? Let's pray. Jesus, we thank you for this time together. We thank you for technology. We thank you for the weekend. We thank you for what it means. We are thankful for our freedoms. Lord, I pray that we would use those freedoms to benefit others and not just selfishly. Lord, I pray that this weekend would be a time of rest and rejuvenation. I'm ready to tackle the week and then to participate in what you're inviting us to take on your yoke and to be still, to be in green pastures, whether we actually are or we're sitting at our desk. But to choose that each and every moment of the day. Help us to do that. And when we fail, Lord, I pray that you would just help us to get back onto that path. Remind us of those things. Jesus, we're just so thankful that you invite us into these spaces, that you empower us and give us the strength to actually do it. And so, Lord, I pray that we would be a people that do this, that invite others into this sacred rest, to this sacred space. Jesus, we're thankful. We love you, and may we live in a way that honors you above everything else. And it's your name we pray. Amen. Shift, thank you for spending your time with us. I hope that you have a safe and beautiful weekend. We're going to be back here next week at the building at 10:30 live. The live stream will go on our YouTube and Facebook next week, also at 6 p.m. Love you guys. Have a fantastic week. Now go and love on some people.